Margaret spent over 10 years caring for her husband after he fell ill. Every morning she rose before the sun, prepared his meals, checked his medicine, and sat by his bedside reading aloud from his favorite books. Her devotion never wavered. She found meaning in the small acts of service, tucking in his blanket, holding his hand through restless nights, whispering comfort into silence. And then one day he was gone. Now Margaret spends her afternoons sitting by the window in her quiet house, talking softly to herself as the light filters in. The silence is heavier than she ever imagined. She wonders, what now? What do I do when there's no one left by my side? This question, though painful, is not unique. Many seniors reach a season where the people they've loved most are no longer physically present. Yet the truth is, life does not end with loss. There are still mornings to greet, stories to tell, and joys, small but real, that can brighten the days. My dear story family, loneliness in old age is one of the most painful prisons, but today, I will show you how to break free from it and find hope, love, and strength, even when there's no one by your side. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more contents like this. 1. Remembering who you are. For more than 10 years, Margaret's life revolved around caring for her husband. Every decision, every hour of her day was shaped by his needs. When he passed away, she was left with not just grief but an unsettling emptiness, a sense that without the role of caregiver, she no longer knew who she was. It took time, but slowly Margaret began to rediscover herself. She remembered her garden, the rows of roses she once tended with pride. She remembered the stories she used to tell her children at bedtime, spinning simple tales into magic. She remembered how much she loved the quiet ritual of baking bread, the smell filling the kitchen with warmth and comfort. These were parts of her that had gone silent while life demanded her attention elsewhere. Now they returned like old friends, reminding her that she was more than one chapter of her story. Aging often brings this same challenge for many people. Our identities are tied to roles: parent, spouse, worker, caregiver. But as those roles shift, we are invited to peel back the layers and see what still lives within us. It is not about replacing what was lost, but about reconnecting with passions, skills, and joys that may have been buried under years of responsibility. Practical steps can make this rediscovery real. Write down your memories, not just the big milestones, but the everyday moments that shaped you. Record your voice telling stories for future generations. Revisit old hobbies or dare to try something completely new, even if it feels small. These acts are reminders that your life is a rich, unfolding narrative. Margaret learned that remembering who you are is not about clinging to the past. It's about honoring it, while allowing yourself to grow into the person you are still becoming. 2. Building daily rhythms of care. After her husband's passing, Margaret found the silence in her home overwhelming. The long afternoons stretched endlessly and loneliness pressed in like a heavy fall. What helped her begin to find her footing again was something surprisingly simple: routine. By building small, steady rhythms into her days, she discovered a sense of balance and peace she hadn't felt in years. She started with gentle steps. Each morning, she opened the curtains wide to let in the light, poured herself a glass of water, and took a few minutes to stretch her arms and shoulders. It wasn't much, but it made her body feel alive again. At midday, she committed to a short walk around the block. Sometimes she greeted neighbors. Other times she walked in silence, simply listening to the wind or birdsong. And in the evenings, she made herself a soothing cup of tea, sat by the window, and reflected on the day. These rituals, though small, gave her days a rhythm that steadied her heart. Consistency is more powerful than we often realize. It doesn't just keep time moving forward, it strengthens health, calms emotions, and offers gentle markers to look forward to. Morning ritual. Begin with breath, light stretches, and a glass of water to wake up the body and mind. Movement. Walk, stretch, or practice chair yoga. Even 15 minutes a day helps circulation, strength, and mood. Evening wind down. Replace the weight of the day with calm. Listen to music, write in a journal, or say a quiet prayer. Routines don't have to be complicated or demanding. They are small acts of care repeated faithfully. For Margaret, they became more than habits. They became lifelines, anchoring her through loneliness and reminding her she still had a rhythm worth living. 3. Finding new ways to connect. For months after her husband's passing, Margaret avoided social gatherings. She worried she wouldn't fit in, that she'd sit silently while others chatted around her. But eventually, loneliness nudged her towards something new, a local senior craft circle at the library. The first day, she walked in with trembling hands, unsure if she even belonged there. She chose a seat near the corner and quietly threaded her needle, listening to the hum of voices around her. Then someone complimented her stitching. Another shared a funny story about tangled yarn, and soon Margaret was laughing, real laughter she hadn't felt in years. What began as a hesitant step became a door to friendship, comfort, and renewed joy. Companionship in later life may not always mirror the relationships we once knew, but it is still deeply possible. The key is to remain open to connection, even in unexpected places. Ways to find connection. Senior centers and libraries. Many host hobby groups, fitness classes, or discussion circles. Faith communities. Spiritual gatherings often provide both comfort and fellowship. Online communities. Safe, moderated spaces allow seniors to share stories, learn new skills, and meet people worldwide. Volunteering. Helping at a food pantry, school, or animal shelter can create a sense of purpose while building relationships. Even the smallest exchanges can brighten a day. A warm hello to a neighbor, a brief chat with a cashier, or a smile shared with someone on a walk can remind us we're part of a living, breathing community. Margaret learned that connection doesn't always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it's found in shared laughter over a spool of thread or a kind word from a stranger. Connection is everywhere if the heart remains open. 4. Caring for the mind and soul. In the years Margaret spent caring for her husband, she rarely had time for herself. Books gathered dust on the shelves, and hobbies she once loved slipped quietly into the background. After his passing, her days felt unbearably long, and the silence in her home seemed to echo. One afternoon, she picked up a novel she had abandoned years earlier. As she turned the pages, she felt her mind awaken, as though part of her that had been asleep was stirring again. From then on, Margaret dedicated her afternoons to nourishing her mind and spirit. Some days, she lost herself in a story. On others, she tackled crossword puzzles at the kitchen table, smiling when she solved a tricky clue. She even began listening to music again, the old songs that made her sway in the kitchen and hum under her breath. These activities didn't erase her loneliness, but they filled her with a quiet joy and reminded her she was still very much alive. Keeping the mind engaged is essential at every age, but especially in later years. Curiosity fuels vitality, sharpens memory, and sparks joy. Ways to care for your mind and soul. Read and write. Choose novels, poetry, or memoirs. Write your own reflections or stories. Puzzles and games, crosswords, Sudoku, or card games help strengthen focus and memory. Lifelong learning. Take a class, art, history, or even technology. Many communities and libraries offer free or low-cost programs. Hobbies. Revisit what you once loved, gardening, painting, sewing, or dare to try something new. Margaret discovered that caring for the mind is also caring for the soul. It's a reminder that even in solitude, life still offers opportunities to grow, learn, and find joy. 5. Caring for the mind and soul. During her years of caregiving, Margaret rarely had time for herself. Her books sat untouched on the shelf, and the piano in the corner gathered dust. After her husband passed, she often found the afternoons long and unbearably quiet. One day, almost by accident, she pulled a novel from the shelf. As she read, the silence around her softened. The story carried her to another world, and for the first time in months, she felt a spark of joy. That small choice led to bigger ones. Soon, Margaret set aside an hour each day for her mind and soul. Some days, she read until the sun dipped low. Other days, she worked through crossword puzzles, pleased when she solved a clue that stretched her memory. She began listening to music again, letting familiar melodies stir memories of her younger years. And slowly, she felt lighter, more engaged with life. Caring for the mind is just as important as caring for the body. Activities that challenge, inspire, and soothe the spirit help fight loneliness and keep you mentally sharp. Curiosity doesn't fade with age. It only needs to be fed. Ways to nurture the mind and soul. Read and write. Dive into novels, biographies, or poetry. Start a journal or write letters to yourself. Puzzles and games, crosswords, Sudoku, or card games can sharpen focus and strengthen memory. Learn something new. From painting to technology, new skills keep the brain active and engaged. Revisit hobbies. Return to music, gardening, or crafts that once brought joy, or experiment with something fresh. Margaret discovered that the mind, once stirred, awakens the soul. And when the soul feels alive, even solitude can become a place of peace and possibility. 6. The gift of self-care. For more than a decade, Margaret's life was devoted to caring for her husband. Every ounce of her energy went into making sure he was comfortable, nourished, and loved. After he passed, she realized how little care she had given herself. Meals had often been hurried, her own health overlooked, her joy postponed for later. But later had finally arrived, and it asked her a difficult question. What would it look like to care for myself the way I once cared for him? At first, the answer felt strange. She began simply, preparing a warm, balanced meal just for herself. Instead of eating quickly at the counter, she set the table with care, placing a small vase of flowers at the center. She noticed how these little touches lifted her mood, how they made even an ordinary Tuesday feel special. Soon, she started sitting outside in the garden each morning with her tea, watching the birds dart among the branches. She treated these moments not as luxuries, but as rituals of healing. Later, she began buying herself small things she used to dismiss: a new scarf, a favorite pastry, a fresh bouquet from the market. Each act was a quiet declaration: I matter too. Self-care is often misunderstood as indulgence, but in truth, it is the foundation of well-being. It reminds us that we are worthy of the same tenderness we so freely gave to others. Ways to practice self-care daily. Cook meals that nourish both body and spirit. Bring beauty into your space: flowers, art, or soft lighting. Spend time outdoors, letting nature restore you. Treat yourself with kindness, patience, and gentleness. Margaret discovered that self-care wasn't selfish, it was survival, and more than that, it was joy. 7. Balancing yesterday with today. On the small table by the window, Margaret keeps a framed photograph of her husband. His smile, familiar and steady, is often the first thing she sees in the morning light. Some days she speaks to him softly, telling him about the weather, the book she's reading, or the way the roses in the garden have begun to bloom. These conversations bring comfort, a gentle thread connecting her to the love and life they once shared. But Margaret has also learned not to live only in the shadow of memory. She makes space for new joys, however small. One afternoon, she shares soup and laughter with a neighbor. On another, her daughter brings over fresh bread, and they sit together at the table, savoring the warmth of both food and family. Even her solitary walks in the sunshine remind her that beauty still exists right here, in the present moment. This balance is not always easy. Some mornings, the grief feels heavy. Other times, gratitude takes the lead, reminding her that love continues in different forms. Aging means carrying both, the ache of what's gone and the gift of what remains. Ways to find balance. Create small rituals of remembrance. Light a candle, speak to a photograph, or keep a keepsake nearby. Allow yourself to enjoy new experiences without guilt. Joy honors the love you lost. Spend time with people who bring warmth and laughter, even if the encounters are brief. Ground yourself in the present with nature, music, or simple daily rituals. Margaret discovered that remembering yesterday doesn't mean surrendering today. By honoring both, she found a way to keep her husband's love alive while still stepping into the light of new moments. 8. Reaching out when you need help. For a long time, Margaret believed she had to carry her grief alone. She told herself she didn't want to burden her children, and she hesitated to lean on neighbors, even when they offered a helping hand. But the weight of silence grew heavier with each passing week, until one morning she admitted to herself, "I can't do this on my own." That moment of honesty became a turning point. With gentle encouragement from her doctor, Margaret joined a local grief support group. Walking into that first meeting was not easy. Her hands trembled, and her heart raced. Yet, as she listened to others share their stories of loss, something shifted. She realized she wasn't alone. Others understood the long nights, the quiet mornings, the ache of missing someone who had been part of every day. Slowly, she began to share her own story, and with each word, the burden lightened. Seeking support doesn't erase pain, but it does soften it. It offers perspective, encouragement, and connection. And it reminds us that strength is not found in isolation, but in community. Ways to reach out for help. Medical support. Talk to your doctor about physical or emotional concerns. They can guide you toward helpful resources. Community groups. Join senior centers, grief circles, or wellness programs. Shared experience builds resilience. Neighbors and friends. Accept offers of help, whether it's a ride to the store or a cup of tea and conversation. Hotlines or online groups. Safe, confidential spaces exist for moments when leaving home is impossible. Margaret discovered that asking for help was not weakness, it was courage. In reaching out, she not only found healing but also the reminder that even in loss, we are never truly alone. In conclusion, Margaret's story reminds us that even in the quietest seasons of life, there is room for growth, healing, and joy. She teaches us that we are never only defined by our past roles, that we can rediscover ourselves, build rhythms that nurture us, seek out new connections, care for our minds and souls, and embrace the gift of self-care without guilt. She shows us that it's possible to honor yesterday while still fully living today, and that reaching out for support is not weakness, but strength. The truth is, old age doesn't mean the end of meaning. It can be the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped not by what has been lost, but by what still remains: wisdom, resilience, and the simple beauty of being alive. Even if you find yourself with no one by your side, remember this: you are still here, and that alone makes your life worth living. If Margaret's journey has touched you, or if you see reflections of your own story within hers, let's keep the conversation going. Share this message with someone who might need encouragement today. Leave a comment below about what gives you strength and joy in this stage of life. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting stories and practical advice to help you or your loved ones live fully at every age. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And together, we can remind one another that no matter the season of life, there is always hope, purpose, and light ahead.